Hello, I've been asked to do a series of videos on tips and tricks that I use in my business. So one thing that came up when I was at a property networking meeting the other day is that people have difficulty calculating stamp duty. So stamp duty is a tax you have to pay to HMRC if you buy a property. So in England, we have stamp duty land tax, or SDLT, you'll see it abbreviated as, or in Wales, you have land transaction tax. So not a lot of people know that it's actually different rules in Wales to England. So you need to be careful of that. And so I've done calculators for both. So I'm just going to walk you through what I've done. So here, so this is for residential properties only. There's lots of different rules with, there's thousands of rules with stamp duty. But for argument's sake, I'm going to call it stamp duty throughout this recording. And there's, so for commercial HMO, if you've got multiple dwellings, so say you're buying a block of flats with multiple properties in it, or you're buying 5 houses at a go, there's lots and lots of different rules for those kind of purchases, so you need to get specialist advice on that or do your homework. What I'm going to talk about today is residential single-use properties, so typically occupied by a single household. So to start with, in this yellow box here is where you'd put your purchase price. So in Wales, typically I'm looking at anywhere between 40,000 and 100. Whereas obviously in London, you might start at 500,000, go up. So it depends on your area as to what's realistic for you. So in England, we have, they've got a relief at the moment, which is for first-time buyers. So if you or your partner have never bought a property before, you are entitled to this calculation. So you have a reduced rate of stamp duty on your first property, providing it's up to a value of 500,000. If you go to 500,001, this doesn't count. So the entire amount will be at regular stamp duty rates. So you need to know this. So, and it's first ever property, and that's for you or your partner. So it's really useful to be aware of this because I think it could save people a lot of money. So it's up to 500,000. So as I say, if you see from this first example, I have put in the full 500,000. So this would cost you £10,000 in stamp duty. However, if you already had bought a property and then you were going to buy this, it would actually cost you 15,000. So it saves you £5,000 by being a first-time buyer. This is a lot of money, especially if you're a first-time buyer. You know, you're trying to get onto the ladder. This is a really, really good relief they've got at the moment. I say at the moment because the government changes the rules all the time. So this is current as at, I'm recording this in February 2020. So, but it just proves that if you actually did go over that, just by £1, this is no longer valid. Oh, whoops, sorry. A little bit more than £1 over. Oh, sorry, doing it live. So I've put in an error, so you don't use that calculator, but it would cost you 15,000 instead of 10. So that's really worth being aware of. So after, let's say you are either buying your first property in Wales where there's no relief, so it's just regular stamp duty. So this is the one that most people will end up using. So if you're buying your own home, this is typically the calculator you need to use. So as you can see, there's different thresholds. So up to 125,000, it's 0%, up to 250, over and above the 125, it's at 2%. So as you can see here, I've got 0% for the first 125, and then the 125 between these two, I've got at 2%, which works out at 2,500, and so forth. So these are the bands in the in England for one property, and these are the bands in Wales. So as you can see, they're quite different. There's a lot more tiers in Wales, and they've got different percentages. So what I've done, if you are sort of, let's say you're living on the border of England and Wales and you're not sure where to buy your next property, I did some calculations to show that if you're buying your next property or second, it's cheaper to buy in Wales up to a value of 402,000. And there's only actually £50 difference between England and Wales between the values of 250 and 402,000. Anything over 402,000, it's cheaper to buy in England. So, so just to illustrate this, so you've got 402,000. It's the magic number where both taxes are equal. As soon as you go over that, so let's say you're doing the 500,000 like we did before. In England, you'd only spend 15,000 on stamp duty, whereas in Wales it would cost for exactly the same purchase, but in Wales it would cost you 17,450. So that's an extra £2,500 that you could be spending on doing up the house, moving costs, etc. So it is worth knowing the differences between these. And then we get to the second plus properties, which is typical for investors. So this one, the rates are generally 3% higher than all of the original rates. So if it's 0% in England, for up to 125, it's 3% for second plus properties. So this was brought in a few years ago. This is to collect tax of investors, essentially. So these are the bands that you now need to use in England and Wales. So as you can see, the same 500,000 property is now going to cost someone with a second home double what the stamp duty would be if it was your main residence. So it's really worth doing your sums before you entered into this, because it can make a massive difference on your investment. So in Wales, it's the same again, 3% up on the original prices. However, there is a caveat. If the property is £40,000 or less, there is no land transaction tax to pay. So this is why buying houses that are in need of a great deal of refurb in Wales are highly sought after, because there's either no or very little tax to pay on that. So I hope this has been useful. I've put the links to where I found this information on the relevant government websites below, and let me know if you'd like a copy of this file. Thank you.